Thanks for your patience, everybody. Please give a round of applause for Minister Michelle Sampson, who's just joined us. It is so great to see such a positive crowd coming out to support today's announcement. Thank you so much, all of you, for being here. As the MLA for this area, I know how important this service is to Yarmouth, but I've also heard from tourism operators across this province how important it is for their businesses. As the minister is going to inform you, we've had one of the best tourism seasons that we've had since 2002, and that was last year. That's something we can all be very proud of. I need to give regrets on behalf of Her Worship Pam Mood. She wasn't able to be here today with us, but she told me she was here in spirit, and she's doing a dance somewhere on behalf of the people of Yarmouth. I do want to recognize Deputy Warden Jim McLeod and all the town councillors that are here with us today, as well as Warden Murray Goodwin and Warden Aldrich D'Entremont from Yarmouth and Argyll municipalities, and the councillors that have joined them as well. Chris D'Entremont is in the audience today, MLA for Argyll. Keith Condon, the chair of the former Nova Scotia International Ferry Partnership. We have Irene D'Entremont, who is on our tourism agency board. And we have a whole lot of other great community leaders that have come out today, particularly the tourism operators. Thanks for being here and showing your support. As I mentioned, we all know here how important this service is, not just to our community and our economy, but across the province of Nova Scotia. And without further ado, I want to call upon Minister Michelle Sampson to give this great announcement that we're receiving today.
Good morning, bon matin tout le monde, and apologize for the delay in getting started today. Last night we had the opportunity to enjoy some great Yarmouth lobster here in Yarmouth. It was delicious. It's not Cape Breton lobster, but delicious just the same. I'd get in big trouble in Cape Breton if I suggested that Yarmouth lobster was better than Cape Breton, so I'm sure you'll understand that. It's great to see so many people who understand the importance of today's announcement. I and our government recognize the ferry's importance to this community and to this region. And that's why I'm so happy to be here to say to you, ladies and gentlemen, mesdames et messieurs, the ferry is coming back to Yarmouth. After the ferry was abruptly canceled in 2009, your streets, your shops, your bed and breakfasts all got pretty quiet. This summer, almost 60,000 visitors came and went through your town and those that surround it along the beautiful South Shore. Some shopped in your stores, others found great places to eat and stay. And many gassed up and drove on, spending money and time in all corners of our wonderful province. As you all know, I'm from Cape Breton, beautiful island called L'Île Madame. We see the benefits at home too of the ferry service, and there were real benefits felt throughout the entire province. Les effets positifs du service de traversier se sont fait sentir dans le sud-ouest de la Nouvelle-Écosse et partout ailleurs dans la province, jusqu'à dans ma région natale, au Cap-Breton. A motel owner from Badek in Cape Breton says half of her bus tours booked for next year have extended their stays, thanks directly to the ferry. And you also saw truckers. They rely on this international transportation link to bring goods to us and to get our goods to the lucrative American market. On the tourism side alone, spending increased by more than $13 million across our province. Did the ferry make a difference? Absolutely, without any doubt. The Nova Scotia Tourism Agency and Pat Sullivan, our CEO, who's with us here today, they surveyed the visitors. About half said that they wouldn't have come here without the ferry. They would have taken their money and spent it elsewhere. Ce service a changé quelque chose. Vous l'avez constaté directement dans les rues, dans les magasins et dans les gîtes du passant. Et nous l'avons constaté, nous aussi. Les visiteurs qui sont arrivés ici à bord du traversier l'an dernier ont dépensé 13 millions de dollars en Nouvelle-Écosse. Quand l'Agence du tourisme de la Nouvelle-Écosse a questionné des visiteurs qui étaient arrivés en Nouvelle-Écosse à bord du Nova Star, ces visiteurs étaient catégoriques. Ils ne seraient pas venus s'il n'y avait pas eu de traversier. Ils seraient allés dépenser leur argent ailleurs. As the snow flies and keeps tourists and truckers elsewhere, the ferry is still in the news. And the news is not always good. Nova Scotians are concerned about the amount of money that we've had to spend on the ferry in its first season. Part of the reason rests with the original agreement. To think that $21 million was enough to restart and run the ferry for 7 years was unrealistic when the NDP announced it, and that was proven. But beyond that, people believe that $28 million is too much to spend every year on a ferry. Our government understands that, and we agree. Today I'm here announcing that the government of Nova Scotia will provide up to a $13 million subsidy for 2015. That's less than half of what was provided last year, and we expect will help allow for a very successful 2015 ferry season. And as you all know, the ferry runs both ways, and that is bringing people and goods to the state of Maine. Quite frankly, Nova Star, as an operator, has spent a lot of money there as well. Governor LePage of Maine committed before his election that Maine would be a partner in this venture. He was elected on that promise and is on record saying that he will honor his commitment and bring $5 million to the table. The company has also worked on a plan to get costs down and revenues up. Some costs last year were one-time only. Fuel costs for the ferry are down. Nova Star has a smaller management team. And the season will be 2 weeks shorter, starting on June 1st and wrapping up in mid-October. A lesson learned from last year. The boat should run when passenger numbers make the most sense for it to do so. Le gouvernement de la Nouvelle-Écosse fournira une subvention jusqu'à 13 millions de dollars pour ce service de traversier en 2015. C'est moins que la moitié de ce que nous avons fourni en 2014. Il y a de bonnes raisons pour ça. L'entreprise a travaillé fort pour réduire ses coûts de fonctionnement et augmenter ses revenus. L'an dernier, beaucoup de coûts étaient liés au démarrage du service. Ces coûts sont donc non récurrents. Le coût du carburant et d'autres coûts ont diminué. De plus, la saison 2015 sera plus courte de 2 semaines, une leçon apprise en 2014. On the revenue side, interest was really starting to build at the end of the season. Nova Star's new reservation system is now up and running, and they're ready to take your bookings. Je tiens aussi à le dire en français. Nova Star est prête à prendre vos réservations maintenant. They already have more than 50 bus tours booked, with 35 pending, totaling over 4,200 passengers that want to come to the province of Nova Scotia. They expect a lot more, and we want to see a lot more. But keep in mind that last year at this time, they had none. With a low Canadian dollar and low prices at the gas pumps, we believe more Americans will want to visit their friendly neighbors. The Nova Scotia Tourism Agency will work with Nova Star to be sure Americans and others know the ferry is a great way to get here. And we can all do our part to spread the word. I encourage you to plan a trip on Nova Star. Encourage your family and friends on both sides of the border to do the same. Invite your friends and family to visit. Nova Star is ready to book your tickets now. Nous avons tout un rôle à jouer pour que le service offert par Novastar connaisse le succès en 2015. Nous devons passer le mot. Quand vous partirez d'ici aujourd'hui, j'espère que vous encouragerez vos amis et votre famille des deux côtés de la frontière à prévoir un voyage sur le Novastar. While there is reason for optimism, there are still rough seas ahead. My colleague, the Minister of Finance, is leading government's work to put the province on a solid financial footing. Some tough decisions need to be made, and when we spend money, Nova Scotians expect us to be accountable, and the ferry is no different. Over the past several months, we have worked to find ways to reduce the subsidy. 2 companies sent in proposals, but the analysis that was done simply wasn't there to get a boat and start a new service in time and at less costs for the coming season. Novastar also tried to find a smaller boat that would cost less to operate. They were close to a deal, but the age and the condition of the boat and the risk of losing the 2015 season scuttled those efforts. To interrupt the momentum, the threat of losing the season we knew would land a mortal blow to any chance for the ferry to succeed. And that is why we are continuing with Novastar this year and continuing our efforts to reduce the subsidy. Some of you may be wondering, why is it a one-year deal? For 2016, our government is asking Novastar and ST Marine, who owns the vessel, to sharpen their pencils and come back with the most cost-effective plan possible. And we're also asking other operators to submit proposals as well. And we will bring in people with ferry experience to evaluate those proposals against clear and consistent requirements. Our goal is simple: to have the right ferry service at the best price. Au printemps, nous lancerons un processus d'appel d'offres. Notre but est de trouver le bon service de traversier au meilleur prix. Nous demandons à Novastar d'aiguiser ses crayons et de nous présenter son plan le plus retenable possible. Nous demandons aussi à d'autres entreprises de nous présenter des soumissions et nous faisons appel à des experts pour évaluer nos options en fonction d'exigences claires et uniformes. Nova Scotians also expect greater oversight and accountability. We have put a tight monitoring program in place for Novastar. This includes random and year-end audits, and we will have the information to know if the plan is going off track at any time. Funding will only be provided to Novastar each month, not all at once, and only after they submit expenses for review. And we will report how much Novastar receives every 30 days, and Novastar must report their passenger numbers. We have made it clear to Novastar: spend more money in Nova Scotia. And Novastar will buy more of what they use and sell on the ship, from wine to fuel, right here in Nova Scotia. La franchise et la transparence sont essentielles pour notre gouvernement, surtout en ce qui concerne ce dossier. Les Néo-Écossais l'exigent de nous et nous l'exigeons de Novastar. Nous avons mis en place un programme de contrôle serré qui comprend des vérifications au hasard. Et nous ne faisons pas un chèque de 13 millions de dollars. Nous ferons à la place des versements mensuels et nous ferons rapport mensuellement sur ces versements. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to take this opportunity on behalf of myself and all of my colleagues to thank my close friend, your MLA, and our Minister of Natural Resources, Zach Churchill. He has been your champion, your voice in Halifax and throughout Nova Scotia for bringing a ferry service back here in Yarmouth, and I want to thank him on behalf of all of my colleagues. And he remains your champion at the cabinet table. And I can tell you, whenever this file appears at cabinet, I usually get texts late at night the night before from Zach just to make sure that everything is going to go fine. It has been a challenging file, but with Zach's support and Zach's passion of knowing the difference it has made for this community and for our province, it makes it easier to be able to work on this file. And I also want to thank my good friend and colleague, Gordon Wilson, in Digby Clare, who knows directly as well the impact it has had for his riding, for his communities, and for our province. Gordon has been a tireless advocate in our caucus, and all of our colleagues have certainly been very supportive of these initiatives, and I want to publicly thank Gordon for everything he has done on this file. I want to as well thank Esther Dares and Alistair Surrett, who have joined us to share what the ferry means to local businesses in the region. And I see Irene Dotrema is here as well. Irene has been a tireless advocate for this region, who has served on so many boards and agencies and given her time freely to share her experience, her wealth of knowledge, and her passion, not only for Yarmouth, not only for the South Shore, but for Acadians as well. Merci beaucoup, Irene. Now, as we were driving down yesterday, we noticed that one of the U.S. papers had posted a story about the announcement today and had quite a bit of information. So naturally, as elected officials, you try to figure out who's the leak, who got this information out, who spoke to the media. And it was not long in reading the article and finding out who was the elected official that may have spoken to see a quote from your beloved Mayor Pam Mood in the article. And it all made sense at that point how they got the story. But as Zach pointed out, we know that it's only hundreds of miles that has kept Pam Mood away from here today. But I certainly want to recognize her passion and her commitment to make this ferry succeed. It has been unquestionable. She's been a tireless advocate, and I know that she's certainly here in spirit, and she'd have one great big smile on her face joining us for this announcement. So thank you again to Pam. I want to as well thank the municipalities from this region for their support and their enthusiasm. It has been unwavering, and we're certainly pleased to see that even the Union of Nova Scotia Municipalities passed a resolution recently indicating its support for government funding for the ferry. And I also want to thank each and every one of you who's taken the time to be here today, who's continued to lobby for the service, to show your support, the warmth and hospitality that you provide to tourists when they reach your shores. You took to the streets when your streets were empty. You worried as you worked tirelessly to get the ferry back. You celebrated with us last year when the Nova Star docked this spring. And you welcomed every visitor in ways that will keep them coming back. I wish I could tell you that the work is over, but it's not. The One Nova Scotia Commission said the province needs to double its tourism numbers. That in itself is no small task. But I know one thing for sure. It's hard to double the number of tourists to Nova Scotia by shutting down a ferry that brings them here to our shores.
That's right.
We need to work together to keep the ferry afloat and not let the critics try to sink it. Because there are those, for purely political reasons, that want to see the service fail. For the residents of Yarmouth, you need not look far to find these critics. Yesterday and last night, they were rehearsing their criticisms of the ferry even before hearing today's announcement or even seeing the new contract. Your positive stories must drown out those who want to see the ferry service fail. Zach, Gordon, and I are here to tell you, the Premier and our government are not prepared to turn our backs on the people of this region. We stand with you, prepared to do the hard work to reestablish a successful international ferry service. The right service, at the best price. Notre but est simple, avoir le bon service de traversier au meilleur prix. A service that brings more people to Southwest Nova Scotia. A service that brings people and economic benefits across our province. Today is not only good news for Yarmouth and the South Shore, today is good news for the people of Nova Scotia. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you so much, Michelle, and thanks for taking the time to come down here. And just speaking as a friend of Michelle, I can't tell you how committed he is to this service, and that boat wouldn't be in this water if it wasn't for the great leadership that Minister Michelle Sampson has shown us. I would now like to welcome to the podium Alistair Surrett, President and Vice Chancellor of the Université Sainte-Anne and Chair of the province's Western Regional Enterprise Network, to speak.
Mr. Ministers, MLAs, municipal representatives, distinguished guests, mesdames et messieurs. Firstly, I'd like to thank Minister Sanson, support of Minister Churchill, for the announcement here this morning and sharing the details with us, and for you to take the time to drive down to Yarmouth for this important announcement. Secondly, and briefly, as chair of the WREN, W-R-E-N, I would like to take a moment to talk about the work of the WREN and the importance of transportation infrastructure. The Western Regional Enterprise Network, or WREN, as I mentioned, W-R-E-N for short, is a volunteer board of 9 private sector people who are appointed by the municipal units from Argyll to Digby. It was created almost a year ago. We now have a CEO in place that's with us here today, and we have a number of board members that are in the room here today. Angélique Leblanc, our CEO, is here with us today, and 3 other employees. We work closely with the municipal units from the region and the province, and we'll be working on 3 core responsibilities. 1, to develop, implement, and monitor a regional development strategy, which is underway now, I'm going to talk about in a second. 2, to cultivate close working relationships with business. And 3, to inform partners and stakeholders regarding local business climate conditions. We've been busy for the last number of months establishing the organization, which is a lot of work in itself, and doing some foundational work, i.e. an environmental scan, an asset inventory, and a labor market study. And these obviously will be invaluable tools for us moving forward. And as I just mentioned, we're currently in the consultation stage of developing a regional economic development strategy. Up to this point, I can tell you that we've heard very clearly from many people of the importance of transportation and electronic communications infrastructure to move our region forward. This is similar as what was just mentioned as well by the minister, from what the One Nova Scotia Commission has heard. Transportation and communication infrastructure is important, and I don't have to tell the people in this room, for attracting, retaining, and expanding businesses, especially in light of our geographic location. Plus spécifiquement, au sujet du traversier ici à Yarmouth, nous avons surtout entendu de l'impact qui vient d'être mentionné par le ministre aussi de ce traversier pour l'industrie touristique. Les restaurants, les hôtels, les attractions touristiques, les tours, les ventes à détail, ainsi que les entreprises qui fournissent et qui servent cette industrie. So to repeat that, we have seen clear evidence of the momentum of the ferry over the first season, especially in the tourism sector and in the retail sector, as well as businesses that service these industries. I can also tell you that outside these industries, as was mentioned, the commercial truck traffic in the fishery, for example, we have heard from places like Eastside Fisheries of the importance of this service that's both convenient and economical for them in order to get their product to market. In this case here, they take the Digby ferry and come back on the Yarmouth ferry. We have also heard of the impact of the ferry in other regions of the province, as was mentioned, and from as far away as Cape Breton. As a matter of fact, I spoke again to Keith McDonald from the Cape Breton Partnership yesterday, who expressed his interest in the ferry because of the impact to Cape Breton Island. So just to show you the impact of the ferry right across the province. And he also mentioned yesterday that they're looking or they're anticipating an increased bus tour season in Cape Breton. So not only is it good for one minister at one end of the province, the other minister at the other end of the province as well. Finally, I can tell you that on behalf of the REN board, that we've heard very clearly of the positive climate and the optimism that the ferry service brings to this region. And obviously for us in moving forward with our strategic plan and assisting and facilitating businesses in moving forward, that optimism and that sense of hope is important for us in order to move the region forward. Donc, encore une fois, merci, Monsieur le Ministre, de venir nous rencontrer ici à Yarmouth. Thank you, Zach, for always being a champion on this cause here, and hopefully together we can move this region forward.
Thank you so much, Alistair. I would now like to call upon Esther Dares, who is a local operator of the Harbor's Edge Bed and Breakfast.
Thanks, Zach. This is okay? Thank you very much. What a great crowd. And thank you, Ministers Churchill and Samson, for inviting me to speak today. I get to tell the industry story about the boat, and I'm more than pleased to do that. Last year was apparently disappointing for the ferry operators and for the province, and maybe even for some taxpayers, but it was nothing about it was disappointing to me. We had more rooms sold last year than in any of my previous 17 years. Thank you. I broke records almost every month, and I didn't break July, and I know I wasn't full in July, so I'm anticipating this year I will break more records. The Canadian dollar, the price of gas, and there was another factor in there, but those are going to contribute. Well, the repeat second year of the boat are all going to contribute to our bank accounts in the industry on this side of the crossing. So this international ferry impacts everywhere in this province. We have the opportunity as innkeepers to communicate with industry partners all over this province because we're making reservations for our guests, we're confirming reservations for our guests, and we're always take a minute to sort of exchange facts with those industry partners to find out what kind of a year they're having. I've talked to Shetty Camp and Windsor and places in between. They're all talking about the good news of the international ferry to Nova Scotia. People aren't getting on that boat to come and see Yarmouth. They're getting on that boat to come and see Nova Scotia, and they're happy to do it. We've got brilliant scenery here and stories to tell that they haven't heard yet. So many people out there on the other side of that crossing have never been to Nova Scotia. So thank you for the investment in that ferry. The juicy bits I want to share with you today is that I averaged out my last 5 years, and my revenues. First, I should tell you that my room rates have not increased in 6 years. And we know everything else has gone up. Fuel's gone up, food's gone up, but my room rate has not gone up in 6 years. And I averaged out the last 5 years, and this past year I did 58% better in revenues than any of the average of the last 5 years. I'm not even reading that. I'm not making that up. That's really true. So I'm amazed. I thought I was working as hard as I could until last year, and now I'm working even harder. When the boat stopped, I let my staff go. Gil and I have been doing everything ourselves. I'm hiring staff this year. I opened a new business last year. It didn't set the world on fire, but you know, I would never have done it if the boat hadn't been announced. It's a bicycle and Surrey rental business, and we need visitors to sell bikes and bike rentals and Surrey rentals. When we heard the boat was coming back, we invested a lot of money in the outside of our house to make first impressions count. I can tell you that this tourism dollar that I make goes into every pocket of my community. I spend it at the hardware store, at the grocery store, on the oil. I spend it all. Ask Gil, he'll tell you. There's nothing in my bank account. I'm waiting for this boat to come back. We need this boat, and we spend that money. My guests are paying for taxis and haircuts and all these things that we don't even consider. The sign shop that I get my signs from had a banner year last year. It's funny. You just don't think that it's going to ripple out that much. The one thing I did, somebody I talked to in Windsor told me, and I never really thought about it this way. She said her business was down when the boat stopped, remarkably down. And she said when the boat started again, people were coming to Windsor to stay with her. And she said they have to get to Yarmouth. And so, of course, they need to drive through Windsor to get there. And so she was thrilled that the boat was bringing people to her doorstep so that they could get to Yarmouth. I just never heard it put in that context before, so hallelujah. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Esther. Thank you so much, Esther, for sharing that story of success. And what's important to note is that those stories are happening all over the province in our accommodations businesses and other tourism-based businesses. So thank you for giving us a representation of what's happening across the province today, Esther. I do want to thank again Mark Munson and his team at Novastar for making this happen. That group took a big risk to put this boat in the water, and we appreciate that risk very much, and we appreciate them being partners with us. I want to thank Neil McKenzie and the group at Yarmouth and Acadian Shores for all their great work in promoting our region, making us a destination for tourists. I want to thank again Minister Michelle Sampson, who's been a great advocate, both at the cabinet table, caucus, and publicly for this support. I want to thank the Premier for his steadfast commitment to the people of this area and to that service. We need to all reflect on the fact that it took a lot of people, a lot of good people working together to bring that boat back in our water, folks. And it's going to take us all working together to make sure that we keep it here. Thanks, everybody, and I appreciate you being here today. For any media, Minister Sampson, Esther, and I will be available for requests for interviews.